I am proud of my country's heritage. We're living on freedom soil. Brave men have gone before me here, unafraid to pray and toil.
So here's a question for you. Is what we're seeing, or what we've seen, the documentation of the restriction and the declaration of our government, of the Senate, the House of Representatives, the President, the courts, and all the departments of the government of the United States? Is this our Constitution? Is that what we're seeing? Has that been changed? Has this declaration and restriction, has there been amendments? Has it been removed? Are the 9th and 10th Amendments? There's restrictions there. We saw that. We're going to go into the 10th Amendment here, but are they still valid, Are they still valid? And can we have that kind of thing in the world we live in today? Why is it important if we do? And if we've seen legitimately that this is our Constitution, and we're not keeping it, we're not keeping the Declaration of Restriction, and we'll go through this in detail as we go along, then what's that mean? If we've seen that this is the government of the people, by the people and for the people, and we're no longer keeping it, is the government of the people perished from the earth? And if our Constitution is our agreement, our commitment, our compact, our covenant, and we're no longer keeping it, then what agreement are we functioning under? If it's not the people's agreement, whose agreement is it? And the other question you can ask is, how do I get to know this? For you grandkids, and Grandpa's not the sharpest tool in the shed, just so you know. Not dull. I'm not dull at all. And quite frankly, I work hard and steady. That being said, I don't have a great IQ. I don't have multiple degrees in political science of any form. Now, we'll go into all the details of how I got the ability to do this. But for right now, these are some questions. If what we're seeing, and if you stuck with me this far, you can't unsee what we've seen. We're going to look at the 10th Amendment now. Okay, we're going forward step by step. It takes a while, but we need to get these things clearly into our heads. We're seeing the government of the people, by the people, for the people, the government of the United States of America. We're looking at what's written, the documentation, and how that government of the people works. We've seen the introduction to the Bill of Rights, and we've seen that our Constitution was designed to prevent abuse and misconstruction of powers. And we do that by declaring and restricting clearly what the government can do, and restricting nothing else but what we gave them clearly to do. We've seen the 9th Amendment. We told them, the fact that we told you could do something, the fact that we told you could do this doesn't mean you can do anything else unless we clearly told you that. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that government isn't used to take away either from us or our family to come, the ability to have life and liberty and to have property and hold it, defend it, and to have the ability to go after happiness and safety. All these things were in there. We saw these things. They're written. They're in the ratification letters, and we see more and more, and we will see more and more, that really our Constitution comes from the ratification letters. They basically are where we get the basis of our Constitution. Now, to understand exactly what this 10th Amendment means, we're going to have to go to the source. The 10th Amendment says the power is not delegated to the United States. That's the government in Washington, the federal government, if you would, by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states or reserved to the states respectively or the people. The 7 states that added amendments to the ratification letters, and the ratification letters insisted upon them, they, all agreed or had this 10th Amendment in them, each one of them. And we'll see this, They defined just what the people meant, and surprisingly, we weren't taught them. In Virginia's ratification letter, it says this: "We, the delegates of the people of Virginia," that's 168 delegates, and in the 1790 census of Virginia, they have 747,000 people, 610, 747,610 people. And then they had, if you divide that out, the 168, you end up with 4,440 for each representative. 4,000 people, 440. Now, right now in the United States of America, the average, if we take, 330, 337, someplace in there we have, and we've got 535. We got 435 in Congress and 100 senators. Counting them all as representatives, we end up with 631,000, 87 people per representative. I think it's Montana has one representative and 2 senators for over 1 million people. At this point, though, on average, they're 141 times better representation. This may be the best representation at a national level of any election. I'll go on with this, but it's kind of neat. Duly elected in pursuance of a recommendation of the General Assembly. Well, what's the General Assembly? That's the Congress of the United States. At this time, they're functioning under the Articles of Confederation. And now met in convention. This is the elected convention. These guys are elected at the county level to represent the people. And they really meant representation back then. Investigated, having fully and freely, they go on, and nobody holding a gun to their head. They're doing this of their free will. Investigated to discuss the proceedings of the Federal Convention. And this Federal Convention is the Philadelphia Convention, the Constitutional Convention, May to September of 1787. And they made the proposed Constitution, which is now here under consideration. And they go on, being prepared as well as most mature deliberation hath enabled us to decide thereon due. And right now, right here would be a good place to say ratify. We ratify in the name of the people. And that's not what they do. And this gets real important. Do in the name and behalf of the people of Virginia. Declare and make known that the powers granted under the Constitution being derived from the people. And there it is, all through these ratification letters. It's a government of the people. This is really what we had. It was unique, and it's changed everything. It changed the world. Now it's gone away. We haven't functioned under it for years, and we'll see this. But here it is. Being derived from the people of the United States may be resumed by them whensoever it shall be perverted to their injury and oppression. They talk about states' rights. And this gets to be a bit of a problem. It's a political tool. Constitutionally, there are first no states' rights. Constitutionally, there are only states' powers, And the powers that the states have are vested to them by the people. Now, some try and have, and they do, tie freedom to slavery. And that seems weird, but that's what they're actually doing. They're saying that the government of the people, they're tying it to bigotry and to hate. Now, there's been hate, and bigotry and prejudice throughout the centuries, all around the world. And there's been slavery. But freedom and government of the people is not the cause, And there's a movement to tie our Constitution and government of the people to slavery and suppose the only solution is government intervention, beyond the Constitution, a tyrannical government intervention for good reason. Restricting speech, the press, disarming the people, and making any true belief in God and his Son, Jesus Christ, fanaticism and dangerous and hurtful. there is evil, and there's certainly been many evil things done. The one great purpose of the government of the people is to keep evil out of the government. Okay? Our Constitution is not, though, to use government ever, or ever has been, okay, to get rid of evil. No government's ever done this, and those who have tried have simply brought evil into their government, which is what we're doing now. We'll go back to Virginia's ratification letter here. And that every power not granted thereby, that's the Constitution, remains with them, the people, and at the people's will. And therefore no right of any denomination, and a denomination is simply a collective designation. It's a kind or a class. No right of any kind or class can be canceled, abridged, that means to shorten by condensing or rewriting, restrained or modified by the Congress, by the Senate or the House of Representatives acting in any capacity, by the President or any department or officers of the United States, except in those instances in which the power is given by the Constitution and for those purposes. And among these essential rights, the liberty of conscience, and you'll see this is used over and over as the right to worship God according to your conscience, and of the press cannot be canceled, abridged, restrained, or modified by any authority of the United States. Just tremendous stuff, and you just see where they're coming from and where their heart is. In paragraph 5 of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations ratification letter, we see that the powers of government may be reassumed by the people whensoever it shall become necessary to their happiness, that the rights of the states respectively to nominate and appoint all officers, and every other power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by the said Constitution clearly delegated to the Congress of the United States or to the departments of the government thereof, remains to the people. Remains to the people, remains to the people of the several states, or to their respective state governments to whom they may have granted the same. It's the people's power. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. This is the 10th Amendment. Nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively of the people. And now we know exactly what they meant and exactly what that means. This 10th Amendment works with the 9th to clearly, specifically, particularly, expressly declare and restrict the government of the United States of America. Now we know precisely what this means, and having gone to the source, in North Carolina's 27th paragraph of their ratification letter, you'll find what they wrote about the 10th Amendment. In New York's 4th paragraph, South Carolina's ratification letter's 5th paragraph, Massachusetts's 3rd, and New Hampshire's 3rd paragraph. When I put it all together, I came up with 199 words. I then cut it down and then realized I probably shouldn't do that. So I'll let you look them up and read them. In these letters, these are the ratification letters. And they're something we just weren't taught, but they're really where our Constitution comes from. And they will explain what our Constitution means. Coming from the people by their elected representatives, define what they wanted. They fixed the proposed Constitution. We've seen the phrase government of the people, by the people, for the people in the Gettysburg Address and in Reverend Theodore Parker's 1858 sermon. We saw then that of the people, by the people, and for the people, each separately, were in the Constitution and in the documents our Constitution comes from. We've seen, the introduction of the Bill of Rights, the function of the Constitution to prevent abuse and misconstruction by declaration and restriction of power. We've seen the 9th Amendment, and now we see the 10th Amendment. Anything not clearly, specifically vested in the government is simply not their business. The government of the people, which we had, which we made, is a government in which the people vest their powers to the government, declared clearly, specifically, particularly, and expressly. The people then restrict that government to only those clearly, specifically, particularly, expressly vested powers and nothing else. If we, the people, want to add, take away, or change those vested powers, we will either use our elected state Congress or we will elect a convention of delegates to represent us and to vote on proposed amendments, which, when passed by 3/4 of the states, will become the Constitution. This is the only way it stays the government of the people. All power is from and remains the people's. It is only vested to our servants, our representatives, to do what we want done. And all we want done, is clearly, specifically, particularly expressed, written in our Constitution. We don't want anything else done. If we do, we'll add it by vote. You understand that? This is the only way to know it's the government of the people. It's the will of the people, and not just somebody else's will and want. You don't end up with corporations, foreign countries, individuals trying to use our government for their benefit, perhaps, okay, or even for our destruction. That's the purpose. This is our agreement, our compact, our covenant. And if kept, this restricts me from using the government to hurt you, and you from using the government to hurt me, and anyone else or anything else from using the government to hurt us. This is government of the people. We're going step by step here. And some of us have a little catching up to do. 50 years advance, I guess, 50 years head start that I have. Now, we want to see where we came from, and where we are and where we're going. We're going to try to answer all these questions that I've given you and make sure that we see clearly the answers to those. I'll give you one more question we'll throw in that we'll answer as time goes along, and that is, what is an enemy of the Constitution? We'll go on with this. This will help us. It'll help us understand our government, our Constitution, what they really are, and how our government's functioning today. What we can do about that, what we should know about that, and how our elections are working.
Yes, our God still bears his mighty arm when men to him are loyal. Yes, our God still bears his mighty arm when men to him are loyal.